Welcome friends, welcome back to the kitchen. I've got a gumdrop cake going in the oven. That is in an episode that probably came out a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. Tonight for supper, I'm making one of those dishes, and I'm sure that a lot of you out there have the same sort of thing. You've got a dish that you make every once in a while, and you love it, and then you forget about it. And then, you know, a year goes by or 2 years goes by and you think to yourself, why haven't I made that in so long? I really like it. So the weather has turned here. It's getting colder. And every once in a while, I used to make this, it's kind of a creamy chicken pot pie with a biscuit topping. So I'm starting out by making the biscuit topping. And the biscuit topping gets baked and then you put it on top. You'll see. Mere 8 minutes. You'll see what I'm talking about. So in this jug, I've got flour, salt, and baking powder. And this is whipping cream, 35% cream. So this is a take on a cream biscuit. When I first got this recipe and first started making this recipe, there was sugar in it. And you can add a couple of teaspoons of sugar if you want to. I stopped at some point adding the sugar. I didn't think it needed it anymore. And it's really easy to mix this up. Just don't add all of the cream off the top. Mix in probably 2/3 of the cream and then add it after you've got it sort of mixed together. Okay, and it becomes too stiff to mix with a spoon. So I'm going to put a little bit of flour down on the bench, bring this out, and I hesitate to say that I'm going to knead it. But essentially what you're going to do is knead it just a little bit until it smooths out and comes together as a dough. Of course, you don't want to overmix it. You don't want to really introduce any gluten. You just kind of want to smooth it out. And it really only takes, 2 or 3 turns. There we go. So, baking pan with a little bit of parchment paper and smooth that out into a round. Or, round-ish. And then I just take a pizza wheel and I cut it. Now, my oven here has a cake baking in it, so it's a different temperature than the biscuit needs to cook. I've got the oven inside preheated and I'm going to bake it in there and then we'll get set up here to make the stew. Okay, biscuits are done and they're looking really good, so I'm just going to sit them there while we work on the rest of the meal. And the rest of the meal is just a super, super simple, easy assembly. So I'm going to heat up this brazier, and while it's heating up, I'll hit it with a little bit of oil. Now, this cooktop heats up really quick, so that oil and pan is already hot. I'm going to hit the pan with some chicken. Now I'm using chicken thighs. I went to the grocery store, and as per usual, chicken thighs were the cheapest. I bought skin on, bone in. I took the skin off, took the bone out, put them in a container, stuck them in the fridge, and they will come back in a future episode as chicken stock. I always save the bones and the skin, no matter what I make. We made Italian sausage a little while ago, kept the bones, kept the skin. Some of the skin I made into cracklins, but I kept most of the skin and the bones. They're also in the freezer, and they'll come back soon as a pork soup. So I just want to brown this chicken on the outside, kind of cook it 3/4 of the way through, and get a little bit of color on it. Okay, the chicken's done enough, so I'm going to pull that out and just stick it in a separate bowl for a moment. And in goes some onion. Now this is the point I tell you, I would normally put a couple of ribs of celery in here, and I thought I had celery in the fridge, but apparently I didn't. So there's no celery in here tonight. It'll be fine. It'll be just fine. And I just want to fry these onions just until they're translucent. They don't have to be cooked all the way through, and you don't need to really get any browning on them. That's good. Next in, I'm going to melt in a little bit of butter. And once that butter is melted in. And put in a couple spoonfuls of flour. Just create a little bit of a roux. Okay, the roux is formed. I've got a little bit of white wine, and I'm going to deglaze the bottom of the pan. If you don't have white wine, you don't want to cook with white wine, you don't want to use white wine, you don't want to open a bottle of white wine, just use the chicken stock. It'll be fine. Maybe add a couple of teaspoons or a tablespoon of vinegar just to bring a little bit of acidity. Okay, and that wine evaporates off really quickly, so we're good to go to the next thing. I've got some cauliflower and some broccoli cut up. I've got maybe 2.5 to 3 cups of chicken stock. And bring that up to a simmer and stir it until we get a nice thickening sauce. Okay, as that comes up to a simmer and starts to thicken and you just keep stirring it, I'm going to add some pepper and salt to taste. My pepper grinder's empty. Okay, I will add pepper and salt to taste. I've got some thyme here, some dried thyme. I'm going to put that in. Okay, a little bit of thyme. We'll try the pepper again. And a little bit of summer savory, because summer savory goes really well with chicken. Okay, that's coming together nicely. I gave it a taste. I didn't really need any salt. There was enough salt in the other components. I'm going to put the chicken back in. And don't worry at this point if your gravy isn't thick enough. I've got a beurre Menet that I can thicken it up a little bit. I also want to add a little bit of cream. So I've got some heavy cream, 35% cream, whipping cream. I want about 1/2 cup. There we go. And so put that cream in. And I think I do need a little bit of beurre Menet. So put in about 1 tablespoon. And we'll mix that in. So at this point, I've added about 2 tablespoons of beurre Menet. And beurre Menet, if you haven't heard me talk about it before, is butter, beurre, butter. Menet means beaten in French. And so you're beating butter and flour in equal parts together. The butter coats the flour in fat so that it doesn't clump, but it brings the sauce together. Gives a nice shine to the sauce, but it also thickens it because the flour thickens it. And for everybody worried about tasting the flour, it's cooking. It's cooking in the sauce. There's no uncooked flour taste. So we're pretty much there. So at this point, I'm just going to add some frozen veg. I'm going to turn it down to a simmer at the same time. And I've just got some frozen peas, frozen corn, and frozen green beans. Mix those in. Put the lid on and just let it simmer for about 10 minutes. Okay, this is smelling fantastic, so I can turn that off. This is one of those dishes where, you know, it could be thick or thin. You could make this way thicker, or you could leave it kind of sloppy like I've left it here, more soupy. I kind of like it this way. Other times I like it thick. Who knows? Hey, Jules.
Hey, Glenn. Hey, friends.
So...
Biscuits!
Yeah, so...
Oh, and some kind of broth.
A creamy chicken stew.
That's only a spoon.
This started out, we used to make this as like a chicken pot pie, and I would put the biscuit on top of the stew and serve it at the table.
I love that. And it has that little kind of gooey, chickeny bit on the bottom. My grandma used to do that.
But there's only 2 of us at home.
And then they just all be soft
and you have to kind of, yeah, they get kind of soggy. So when you eat them tomorrow for leftovers, it's better just to dip them tonight.
I can dip mine. I'll be okay.
But for a wonderful presentation, take the biscuit, drop it on top, and take it to the table. Your guests will absolutely love it.
I don't know what to try first, because, you know, biscuits, soup.
Biscuits, I know.
Is it soup? Is it stew?
I don't know.
How hot is it? I'm always worried about how hot it is. Oh, not too bad. There we go. All that stewy goodness.
A
Glenn has nothing to say. Wow, that's great. Maybe we should just end it there. Glenn has nothing to say.
I really like this. I don't know why. It's been probably 4 or 5 years since I've made it. It's one of those recipes that I had completely forgotten about. Thought about it today. Now, we made the biscuits, but you could also do like a drop dumpling in there. Pretty much the same dough. And just drop it in there and simmer it in the liquid. Have it cook in the liquid and it would suck up all of those flavors too. This is comforting to me. I really like this. Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon.